All right, everyone. Like I just mentioned on the intro, we are here with a special guest today, Major League Fishing angler. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Brandon Coulter. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. How are you?
Thanks for coming. He came all the way up here from Knoxville, Tennessee. You believe that?
Yep.
Not just to talk to us, but we're doing a little hunting here in Ohio. You picked a perfect time to come. The weather finally just got cold for us. So welcome, man. Thanks for coming to the show.
Well, I appreciate you having me.
Yeah.
No, it's one of my favorite times of year to come up here for sure.
Oh, perfect. And go ahead and let's go around the table here. We got some another special guest with us too, Mr. Hunter Moss.
What's going on, guys?
So you may remember him from the Brian Slayton episode, I think, and Jason Plant. He was in for both of those. So head on back to those episodes. I don't have their numbers off the top of my head right now. And then, as always, the man,
I'm here.
my resident fishing expert. He's excited he's excited for this one. So, as you guys know, and as I've said before, I'm what these guys like to refer to as a meat chucker. I fish, in my grandparents' pond with a earthworm and a Shakespeare rod. So, I'm gonna let these guys talk fishing today. I'll try to chime in when I can, but go ahead and get started, man.
I think I want to go to that pond actually.
It's not. It's what does Mike call them? A racetrack.
Yeah, racetrack.
Yeah, Watson over there. Their story always calls the ponds racetracks. It's where he catches his big
They
ones.
got
at.
nowhere to go.
Exactly.
They just swim in circles.
I like it.
Well, Brandon, tell us why you're up in Ohio. What are you doing up here right now?
Well, I fish for a living so
Okay.
that I can come up here in the fall. Because if I had a regular day job, I could not come up and spend my falls in Ohio chasing deer. So
Oh, heck no.
up here doing a little bow hunting, and very fortunate. I've got a friend of ours that actually the owner of Crockett Creek, Kenny Needham and Wallen Myers, another good friend of mine, own about 400 acres, probably hour and 15 minutes south of here.
I'll go ahead and take those pens from you here anytime.
Exactly. And man, it's just a special place. It's a place that I go to in the fall to unwind, and it's a little bit like Groundhog Day.
Oh, yeah.
You get up every morning, you go hunt, you come in, go back out in the evening hunt. But no, it's a special time of year for me. It's time that I can unwind and kind of
Sure.
shut down from the fishing season and enjoy myself a little bit and chase some deer.
So those 2 bucks in in Tennessee, they just weren't enough for you. Now you got to come up here and shoot all mine, huh?
Exactly.
Used to be 3.
Yeah.
And you didn't bring any fishing rods with you, did you?
I did not.
We're not known for our bass fishing.
Well, Lake Rupert's right there close to where we hunt, and so we've threatened for years to kind of go cast a line in Rupert, but we haven't done it yet.
Well, the deer hunting in Ohio is very high level. The bass fishing's not. So don't try and cross reference those. But
We know what we're good at.
There you go.
how's the hunting been?
Hunting's been a little slow actually. I've read some reports about EHD in Ohio,
Sure.
and it was funny. Vinton County, which is where we are, hasn't had a whole lot of reports of it.
Yeah.
But I can tell you it's hit. We found some in ponds, and so it's a little bit slower than usual. We've less pictures than we usually get.
Yeah.
But we've seen a couple decent ones. We had one break daylight the other day that I passed. I might regret that one. But no, it's like I said, I don't come up here to kill a deer. I come up here to unwind.
Yeah.
And if I kill one, it's a bonus.
Oh, sure. And I believe that actually started in your neck of the woods too there, buddy. So EHD, Southwest Ohio, I think that's where it originated over there in Hamilton County. So, it's just going to be what it is. I think we had talked to Mike Tonkovich, who's the deer program administrator for the state, and he had mentioned this is kind of be like that daycare. I'm going to use this reference. It's probably going to be horrible, but that daycare when that first kid gets sick and then the whole classroom goes down, and then now we start to build immunity. So these fawns, these bucks or does that are surviving this disease, come next year, they'll be a lot more, immune to it, if you will, for lack of a term. So
Yeah, I think it's like on a 5-year cycle is
Yeah.
what I've heard. And, we see it, on our property for sure. And, but it's just, you have a slower year every once in a while. And
Yeah.
like I said, if that's why I came, I'd go home, but I think I'm going to stay for a while.
there you go.
So, Brandon, tell us how you got started in fishing.
Man, it's funny, tournament fishing, I actually got into it later in life. But it's what I always wanted to do. My actual high school yearbook, I'm from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania originally. And my high school yearbook, I think everybody thought I was crazy. Dating myself in 1988, said wants to be a professional bass fisherman. And so
That's awesome.
I made it happen.
yeah, no, it was but I moved to Tennessee, went to school.
Sure.
Quit fishing for about 15 years. Life, happens. Got married, kids, businesses, and then found myself in a very fortunate situation. Sold a couple businesses. My wife started the State Farm Agency, and I got to go fishing.
There you go.
Yeah.
So it was 2007-ish, I guess. Decided to fish the FLW Tour, which back then was, kind of a little easier tour to get started on because it just had 6 events a year, versus Bassmaster. And so started there and worked my way through that, through FLW, made some Forcewood Cups. And then kind of when the kids got older and I wasn't required at home as much,
Sure.
Qualified for the Bassmaster Elite Series, and that's kind of when it took off.
So
Awesome.
did you know you were capable, when you started doing the FLW Tour, did you know you were capable of going pro?
Obviously to do it, you have to have the confidence, right? I mean, it's, if you don't, there aren't many people that make it that aren't confident they can do it. At 16 and 17, I was the youngest qualifier for the Redman Regional, both years when I was, first starting. And, that kind of set me off on the, desire to do it someday. So I was the best junior, so to speak, at that time. And so I think I always knew that I could do it. But like I said, other things took precedent, for a long time. And, what really started it was in 2000, I owned an ad agency and I moved my parents from Pennsylvania, to Knoxville. And, they came down to be closer to grandkids. And Dad and I started fishing again. We started fishing team tournaments, and we won 2 or 3 boats. And
really?
That kind of set. Then the desire came back. And so I think I always knew that I could. I just had to have the right opportunity.
So your roots were in Tennessee, fishing.
Yeah, started out in Pennsylvania.
I was gonna say I wanted to get into
In the Northeast.
How is a Philly kid? Because there ain't much fishing opportunity in Philly outside of the coast. But how did a Philly kid become enamored with bass?
My father.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. My dad was grew up in Chester, Pennsylvania, which if you know anything about that, it's bad. It's as inner city as you can get.
Sure.
Joined the Marine Corps, and I think his way of making sure I wasn't, a street kid, was to get outdoors. When he got out of the Marine Corps, we went, we didn't have anything. And we went apartment to apartment to apartment, but constantly getting further and further away from the city.
From the inner city.
Now, in the end, we were 15 minutes. It's not like we got real far, but
Sure.
But we got far enough, and his, I don't know, I've never asked him this, but I would imagine his drive for the outdoors was primarily based on getting me outside.
Yeah.
And, that's something I just, obviously as a city kid, and you get to see that stuff and you start to get enamored with it, and just never want to do anything else.
I was interested about it because my brother's in the Coast Guard. He just got out of the Coast Guard. He did his term or whatever, and he was stationed in Philly for quite a while doing some of the dock work and the pier work and stuff for the Coast Guard. So I'm really familiar with that area. They actually live in just south of Wilmington, Delaware, which I'm sure you're half hour, 45 minutes now.
Right.
So
I actually grew up directly in between Wilmington and Philly.
Yep, I knew exactly where you are. Yep.
So I was right across the Pennsylvania line.
Yep.
And that's where I guess we were there when I was 7. Is when we got our first house, and apartments before that, but and then we were there till I left.
Yeah, cool.
So got started in Tennessee. When you started to travel on these tours, where'd you struggle the most?
Ooh.
It was funny. The South.
Really?
Yeah, it was. And if you look at my career just in general, and it's played out time and time again. Man, I didn't have a lot of experience up north, because I was 16 and 17 years old, and I didn't go back to fishing until I was in my late 30s, But for some reason, every time the truck goes north, I had success. It was just a comfort level, I think, for me. It certainly wasn't, I knew some special techniques from when I was 16 years old, but I think it was just a comfort level that I had when I went north. And so really and truly, I've struggled in the kind of the region that I live in. You know, Chickamauga's never been good for me. Gunnersville, I've had some good tournaments on Gunnersville, but really for me to do well, it's I either got to go to Texas or go up north.
Yeah.
And you know, the southern lakes have always been a struggle for me.
Do you think that the fish are easier to catch up north?
Oh, for sure. I mean, there's no doubt. It's. I mean, there's not a fisherman on the planet that fishes the tourist that doesn't get a smile on your face when you go to, you know, Lake Erie or you go to Champlain or you go to Thousand Islands. You know, it's just, you know, those fish know that the ice is coming and they're going to eat until it gets here. And so it's just a whole different mentality.
Well, that makes sense for sure, though. I didn't think about it that way, but they definitely have more of a seasonal change. So they're you know, the way that they handle themselves throughout the year is going to be completely different than the fish in the south.
Do you think any of that has to do with the pressure down south as to up north?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. You know, when you go down south, I mean, you know, I've got a lake house on Watts Bar, and I mean, there's a wildcat, you know, every night of the week. You can fish Monday night somewhere, you can fish Tuesday night somewhere, you can fish Wednesday night somewhere, you know, all in the same lake. So, you know, pressure moves fish. And so it's not that they're not there, they're just harder to catch. They just move a lot more. You know, the schools, if there's a bunch of them grouped up somewhere, I mean, they're good fishermen down there. They're going to find them and they're going to bust that school in a couple of days. And they're not going to be there anymore. So it for sure is that. And then I think the biggest thing though is the seasons. You know, if we got ice, you know, for 3 or 4 months a year or two, I think our fish would feed heavier, you know, before it comes. And,
I know I don't know if they do this on St. Lawrence, Thousand Islands, but I know on St. Clair there's a season.
Yeah, you know, New York, a lot of the states have seasons.
So you can't even tournament fish.
Yeah, I think you're going to see a little interesting change to that this year. So New York has changed their laws to you can target bass preseason, you just can't keep them. And I happen to fish for an organization that we don't put them in a live well. So we may be able to fish New York before the season.
Okay.
That's cool.
Actually, we do. We're scheduled to go to Lake Cayuga this year.
Oh, he's trying to hide it. Like,
Preseason.
Maybe.
Like what time frame?
I think it's like the first of June. So the season doesn't open until June 15th or something, and we're there early. We're there before the season opens.
Nice.
So it ought to be. This will be the first time it's ever happened on a major organization goes up north before the season starts. So I think a lot of guys are excited about it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, not a lot of local guys, but a lot of
Local guys.
Well, they've been spoiled for a while.
Yeah.
They've had that law for a couple of years now, where they've got to go fish in the preseason. They just couldn't put them in the live well. So let us have a little fun for once.
And there you go. That's awesome.
So speaking of up north, the fishing world blew up recently due to some very scandalous fellas.
Jeezy Pete.
The cheaters, we've all heard of this.
It always has to be in Ohio, too.
I have always heard this rumor of guys used to stuff weights in fish, this, that, the other, and I never believed it until that.
Yep.
Have you ever seen that? Well, first of all, what's your thoughts on that, and have you ever seen that in bass fishing?
He had about 15 weights fall out of his pocket when he sat down.
I heard something jingling.
That's right. That's right. We're, the way they design weights in Ohio are way better for stuffing in fish. So that's what I was doing. I was going through the back warehouse here. I was getting some stuff for the season.
We snuck him some.
No, it was, the good news is they're prosecuting them, right?
Sure.
And, that's what has to happen. If we're ever going to get it completely out of the sport, you have to take it serious when it does happen. And, the fortunate thing is there were videos taken.
Yep.
And it took the world, it took the fishing world by storm. So I don't think the authorities had any choice.
No, it took the country by storm.
But to move forward with as prosecuting them as heavily as they can. And thank God for social media. I mean, I'm serious.
Sure. No,
because I think in the past there was this, that's a fishing tournament. Like they might not even answer the call if you called the authorities.
Oh,
like,
for sure.
Really? Some dude, put a weight in a fish and you want me to come out here and we've got broken cars.
Yep.
Cars broken into. We need to investigate other stuff.
Yep.
But because it became such a social media issue, I think it pushed the authorities to really go hard on it, and that's going to help.
Oh yeah, I mean,
for sure.
You talk about the money involved in that alone, and then you start getting into the environmental impact, if you will, that ODNR is going to get their skin out of the game, and then there's news, like there's outdoor news where poaching or whatever that stays kind of local. I mean, that was on. I mean,
everything.
I mean, not 60 Minutes, but it's on national. It's on national CBS, NBC, ABC, and so people like outlets like Meteor pick it up, and then that blows it up into another world as well, especially in like our industry. But when you can tell it was a big deal when the nightly news in New York are talking about it, then it's like, all right, that's this is going to make some headway here. So.
Yeah, and I think part of it was they were poking fun of it a little bit,
Yeah.
and that's okay. That's okay. It's some of the national stuff was kind of but it has happened in fishing forever.
Sure.
It's for sure a part of fishing, whether it's bass fishing, walleye fishing. Now it is nowhere near what a lot of guys think, right? I mean, everybody that fishes a team circuit swears if somebody's beating them.
They're cheating. There's something, right?
They're doing something, right? And I would say 99.999% of the time they're just beating you. Just go figure out how to catch them better. But it has happened in the past. I mean, there's been a few things in bass fishing that have been similar, whether it's cages or scuba divers or
buying fish or whatever.
There's been a few things here and there. But the key is to catch them. The key is to. We're very fortunate in an organization to have polygraphs. We have a lot of things that help with that at the highest level. Now that's harder to do, down the line. I learned from a polygraph guy recently. Our polygraphs on major fish take about 2.5 hours.
Oh, really?
And I was just commenting, and it's actually law enforcement that does them.
Okay.
It's a guy that does all the polygraphs for, I believe it's Maine. Comes to every tournament and polygraphs the entire field throughout the year. You're going to get a polygraph this year.
That's crazy.
And what he was saying is that the 30-minute polygraphs that you get after a tournament really, they're just not. They're not, I guess, designed really to catch anybody.
Sure.
Because you have to go over this questions. There's a lot to a polygraph that a 30-minute polygraph just can't catch.
You got to set up a baseline and stuff like that too, don't you? Yeah.
You got to review the questions. You got to do all kinds of stuff, and it takes hours. To do one properly.
That's crazy. I didn't know they even did that. I know that we had talked, and I mean, I'm not super invested in the sport, but I know we had talked, Hunter, about there being obviously, what's the word? Officials or whatever on each boat too, right? Mm-hmm. And of course, you got to have the media crew on there as well. It'd be hard, but going into the smaller circuits, like we were talking to Watson over at the store, Mike is going to know when somebody pulls out a bass, roughly what that bass is going to weigh, give or take, maybe 0.5 pound, right?
Right.
When you're pulling a bass that looks like it's 4.5 pounds and then it weighs out 6 plus or something, you're like,
here's the thing too, depending on the time of year, that can be hard to judge.
Well, yeah.
Because
longer and
a fish full of eggs, a fish not full of eggs, you know what I mean? That can be hard to tell. And the only way I think you can really judge that is by cutting the fish open or some sort of detector or something like that. But unfortunately, these little local tournaments can't afford to have an official on every single boat.
Are we having one this year? No, I'm just kidding.
You're going to be one of them.
Yeah. Well, everyone's cheating if I'm one.
I think the species had a lot to do with it too, right?
Yeah.
So walleye, you keep, you take home and eat.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. If you were stuffing bass with those same amount of weights, they'd be dead, and they're now property of the tournament.
Yeah.
In every tournament I've ever fished, once you hand it to the weighmaster, it's their fish. You don't get to take it home and cook it.
Yeah.
So these guys, I think, were able to take all their walleye home.
Yeah.
Because it's a fish that you're catching for the table as much as anything else, right? So they were able to take their fish home, and therefore they just take them home and cut the weights out of them and fillet them up. In a bass tournament, if all of a sudden Lake Rupert had a bunch of dead fish at the ramp, and they're laying on the bottom, someone's going to figure out something. So, I think a lot of it had to do with, the fact that walleye go home with the team generally
Makes sense.
and get eaten. So they were able to kind of hide their transgressions.
You guys get penalized for dead fish too, don't you?
We do.
Okay.
We do. So Major League Fishing, we don't. At when I was with Bassmaster, we did because we had a weigh-in. And you had to take it. At Major League Fishing, we catch, weigh, and release.
On the boat.
Yeah. So we have a boat official with a scale, and we're linked in, so everything's live scoring. So I mean, it wouldn't be possible in our league to have that kind of thing. What they're checking for in our polygraphs are things like, I've got a tournament on. I keep saying Rupert because it's the only lake I know around here, but
Buckeye Lake. Baby.
I've never even heard of Rupert ever.
Caesar's Creek.
Okay, we have a tournament on Buckeye, and I call this guy. Actually, I would have called one of his other guys at store because I don't know how well he does.
Shit!
But
the other old guys know a lot more. Let me tell you.
So
I'm just messing with it.
They
I would. I'd call somebody for information, which I'm not allowed to do.
Yeah.
And so that's what they're checking for, mostly in our polygraphs, because on the water transgressions, we have boat officials and cameramen.
It's hard to.
I mean, there really couldn't be anything that we do that doesn't get caught in the moment.
Yeah.
They just want to make sure you're not getting like a map from somebody else or like honey hole over here.
Insider tip.
And as competitors, you guys can share information.
Yes. So I can call, if we're going to, I don't know, Lake Fork, I can call Kelly Jordan and say, how are we going to catch him? Well, Kelly's probably not going to tell me because he's got to compete against me that year. But, we're allowed to discuss everything except for specific locations with the other competitors. So, me and Ott can talk about Watts Bar, or we're going to Cherokee. That's a good example, Cherokee Lake next year. Me and Ott can talk about Cherokee. We can talk about, how we think we're going to catch them, how we're going to do this. But we can't say, hey, the brush pile on point 16, it ought to be really good.
Sure.
Because that's a specific location.
Yeah.
Are guys pretty loose about stuff like that?
Man, it's funny. I think you just have your core group. I don't think there's a person that fishes on our tour that doesn't have somebody they confide in a little bit. Whether it's their roommate or what, that they, there may be, a lone wolf somewhere, but, usually you'll have a couple guys that you just kind of, talk with throughout the week just to, try to, hey man, I'm catching them in 8 foot, or you seeing anything in 30 foot? There's a little bit of that.
You get, and I don't know how the sponsorship stuff works, but like you think of some sponsorships, equivalent fishing like this to kind of almost like NASCAR, right? Where you got all these sponsorships. And there's guys that are on like particular teams, or like let's say that there's a Costa group of guys that are all sponsored, or is it the Lowrance like guys like, is that kind of like your core group, or is it still separate?
I think that can build into a relationship because you're just spending time. So if you're with a bunch of pure fishing guys at every media event and everything else, you may develop a relationship and a friendship with them. I don't know that it's tied to the sponsorship. In any other way, then that's just people you're spending time with. Most of it's guys you're around, whether they're roommates, whether they're guys you came up with, through the ranks. I'd say that has a bigger impact on that.
So you guys got some new rules in MLF.
Yeah,
he's laughing.
Tell us about them. Tell us about your feelings.
I want to share my feelings, guys. So Major League Fishing, we kind of built the brand on every fish counts. It was a structure that was created by Gary Klein. I think one of the most forward-thinking things in fishing in a long, long time.
I agree. And
the format was just undeniably successful. Fishing's always struggled on TV, whether it was ESPN or wherever, it kind of has a run in a place or two, and then it kind of gets canceled, and then it goes to another network and has a run for a little while. But Major League Fishing, it's been the number one show on Outdoor Channel for, I think, 10 or 12 years.
Yeah, it's always on.
So, and the reason it's always on is it's their highest rated show.
It's exciting.
And, so I'd be lying if, I said I'm not worried about the new format because, it's It's just kind of what we built our brand on.
Yeah.
But, with that said, the problem with the format is without boat officials, without live scoring, you can't fish it. Meaning the average fisherman, the weekend guy, can't fish the format. Yeah. Can't feel the excitement that I do when I know I'm 2 pounds down with an hour to go.
Yep.
There's just the technology's not there yet.
All right, everyone, we need to take a quick break and thank our show sponsor, Toby Burdett, with Burdett Taxidermy and Legends Big Game Recovery. The hunting season is slowly winding down, and maybe you've taken your target buck or that unique game bird. If you're in Ohio or the surrounding states and want to get some of those memories preserved, give him a call at 740-281-6435. Thanks, everyone. Good luck this season. Now let's get back into the conversation. So let's get into that, though, a little bit. So the current format is weigh on the boat, release on the boat.
Yeah.
And it's all tied in remotely, so on the web page, exactly, like you just mentioned. Hour to go, I'm 2 pounds down, I just need one more. Like, one more, just give me one good one.
Yeah, Hunter's got 50 pounds, Jordan's got 0.
That's exactly how it would be. No, I would have about 100 because I'd be having those lead weights in my pocket. But
and his night crawlers.
Yeah, my night crawlers, they slay. Kind of. But the new format, how are they? Let's talk about how they're changing.
So the old format was every fish. Now in what we call the best, there's 2 parts of Major League Fishing. There's what we call the Cup events, which are now team series, which is going to be awesome.
Yeah,
y'all look out for that. It's going to be fun this year. But and those tournaments have always been 1 pound minimum. And every fish over a pound counts. And so you have a scorekeeper that weighs it, it goes in, and you roll. And you know how many pounds you're down at all times. It's the boat official's job to make sure you're stressed, to tell you where you are at all times. Now, on the Bass Pro Tour, which is our kind of elite series, if you will, that base minimum is based on the lake. Oh. So, it's 2 pounds is our generic, which is a little harder. And the reason they do that is because we have 2 days of practice. So they figure they'd up the ante, make it a little tougher because you've got some practice time. So let's see what you can catch, with a little higher weight limit. But then every fish over 2 pounds counts. Mm-hmm. And, that's what we've done for, several, since we started the Bass Pro Tour 5 years ago. This year, what they're switching to is they're still going to have live scoring. Okay, so they're still going to have, you're going to know where you are in the tournament at all times. They're going to catch, weigh, and release just like they always have. But they're going to go back to a more traditional format, which the scoring is going to be your largest 5. Hmm. So, will it slow the competition down? Will it change? I don't know. They've got a lot of feedback, from a lot of people that can't fish our format. They can't afford to have boat officials in every group, everything. So what the average guy fishes across the country is a 5-fish format. Yeah. So how that's going to play with live scoring, man, I don't know.
Yeah.
I just don't know. And so, it was a change they felt they need to make, and you can't argue with them. They've made some really good adjustments with their format. From building it from scratch to the 2 pound minimum was a huge success.
Yeah.
I just hope this follows suit. I really do.
That's going to change up his New York thing too.
Yeah, no doubt.
And then you go live well and fish now.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting because
we still don't put them in a live well.
Oh, okay.
No,
it's catch, weigh, and release still.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because nowadays, to be successful in anything, you constantly have to be making adaptations. And that was something MLF was very good at. We saw a lot of the complaints I heard with MLF the first couple of years was, let's go catch a bunch of 1 pound fish.
Right.
They upped it to 2. And I thought that was a good adjustment. This one here, I think it's going to be interesting, like you said, because now you're very similar to the other federations on that level. Now, are those federations live? That I don't know.
No.
The competitors don't know how much the other competitors have
until they get in.
And there's still that edge. There's still that thought in the back of your mind, like, crap, I gotta catch him. You know what I mean? Whereas the other federations, you have no clue. So I think it still separates, from the normal field. But like Brandon said, I'm excited to see how it plays out. You guys got to vote on that, didn't you?
Yeah, we did. The anglers voted, overwhelmingly to switch.
Really?
Cool.
And, there's, I can. It's funny. It's like polling. Okay, so it was really interesting. So Jacob Wheeler is probably the top guy in the world right now. He's been number one in the world rankings for years and years and years. Jacob did a poll on all social media.
Sure.
And it came out, I think, 55 to 45. Somewhere. I don't think it was even 60-40 to change the format. From his fans. But what was funny is I did a podcast right after that with Jacob talking about the format change. The comments on the podcast, 90-10. Actually, about 95-5 to not change the format.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I think polling, if you already have what you want, you're not likely to speak up about it.
Yep.
If you want change, you're going to be loud about it.
Yep.
So I think if you did the polling now, after we switched, I think it would be the exact opposite.
Yeah.
So, man, there's no telling. I am just fortunate to go fish.
Yeah.
And I'm going to fish whatever format they put in front of me.
Yep.
I do think that there'll be I think it'll be more relaxing. You pull up to a dock and I look at Lake Fork last year. I got, I did not make it out of my round by like 15 ounces, but I caught a 10-3. I mean, I'm making it now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
if you catch a 10-3, you're in.
Yeah.
If you just have 4 other fish to go with it. So I do think there's going to be those moments where, you catch I caught a 6-8 Watts bar last year that was like the big fish by almost 2 pounds. And you catch that one and you just,
Yeah.
you take your deep breath and you go catch 4 more with it and you're solid. So I think it's going to be interesting. I don't think it'll be as high stress because you're going to have those moments where you can take a deep breath, and in the format as it is now, you never stop.
Yeah.
I mean, you never stop. You're never safe.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting. It'll be really interesting. Hey, the guys wanted it. The league agreed to it, and we're going to go fish.
Let's go see if you can catch an 11-pound at Buckeye Lake this year.
I don't know if there's one of those in there.
11-pound bag.
Oh,
There you go.
maybe not right now. But
probably not
at
right
the
now.
right time of the year. But so you think that'll fit your style fishing better, or
Man, listen, I fish. I mean, I'd go fish a bluegill tournament tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I don't care if it's every one you can catch or
Yeah.
the biggest one.
yeah,
And,
It makes me hungry, Ben.
Yeah.
it really doesn't matter. I just want to go. I fish for the competition.
Yeah.
I don't fish for, a lot of guys love bass fishing. I love deer hunting. I'll just be honest. I fish because I love the competition.
Yeah.
It's baseball, it's football, it's all the things, that I can't do anymore because I'm 52.
Yeah.
But I can go fish at the highest level.
Sure.
And get my fix.
yeah.
I'm a competitive person by nature. I played every sport growing up, and it was either that or darts.
Yeah.
And Deanna doesn't want me at the bars until 2 a.m. throwing darts. So,
No,
Must
I don't
not be a
blame.
good
so
golfer.
fishing. I actually love golf.
Golf is
It's too frustrating.
yeah.
I can't do it either.
I enjoy. I mean, we're getting down this hole, but I enjoy golf because I get to drink.
Yeah, I like
I
golf,
chase
but
balls.
I want
It's just social to drink and,
Yes.
and to have fun with your friends. And I could care less if I'm Tiger Woods, but
it's hard for me to go out and golf and somebody be better than me. That's
Oh,
my
sure.
thing. Like
Let's go play golf.
yeah, I'll do it. Let's do it right now. It's 39 degrees. We can do it. Mastodon's open down the road.
yeah. Well, so back to fishing. Do you feel like tournament fishing nowadays is harder than it was 20 years ago?
No doubt about it.
No doubt about it.
No, it's and it's
Oh, sure, yeah.
it's the nature of where we are. Everything's easier. I mean, if I want to go make a pineapple upside down cake, I just click my phone.
Yep.
And I
Yeah.
can make one tomorrow. I don't have to learn from my great grandma's recipe.
Sure.
It's in a box somewhere that I got to go dig out of the attic.
I'll go turn my smoker on with my phone right now.
Exactly. And so the new generation is learning so fast.
Yeah.
And so for sure it's harder.
Yeah.
And then, it's gotten harder as well because we've limited the fields. Back when I started, the Bassmaster was, it was the Bassmaster Invitationals. And it was 250 guys. And I know it sounds crazy, but it was easier to do well with 200 guys. FLW started out with 200 guys. And in that scenario, the top 30 or 40 are making way more money because you got a bottom 100 that, were just supporting the top 50 guys. So as field size got smaller, the Elite Series went to 100. It got really hard. You were eliminating everybody that was, not as good. And then when Major League Fishing started, it's 80.
Yeah.
So as the field sizes got smaller, the youth got educated. I'm just glad I'm still there.
Yeah. You've kept up, man. Good job. Yeah. What do you think about the new amazing technology?
Yeah. Speaking of youth,
that's awesome. This guy right here.
Forward-facing sonar is amazing. It's I've heard it called the Alabama rig. I've heard it called everything else. But it's funny. Y'all are too young for this, but I remember when mapping came out, and every old timer on every lake in Tennessee
was so mad.
Oh my God, they hated it, including me.
Oh yeah,
I was one of those guys. And it was you lined up this buoy on that boathouse with the bird feeder, and you made the cast, and that's how you did everything. And when mapping came out, it took all that out.
Yeah.
But I don't know anybody that doesn't want lake mapping. Yeah. The Alabama rig, I think we jumped the gun a little bit on it, by banning it. Just my personal opinion.
Yeah.
The fish have got used to it. It doesn't dominate like it used to.
Yeah.
There's still a time of year for it, and there's still a time and place, but there's time and place for a buzzbait.
Yeah.
And I think we're kind of jumping the gun a little bit on forward-facing sonar too.
Yeah, and I think there's a huge misconception on it, especially to people who don't really understand it. The guys, you still have to find the fish.
Yeah.
You still have to get them to bite your whatever you're throwing. My whole thing on this is, and I would really, really enjoy this. I would love to see guys at your level go to a lake
with nothing
that they've never fished.
That's awesome.
They've never seen a map, and fish it for 2 days and then fish a tournament. No electronics on the boat.
I'm sure
go out and fish it bare bones.
And they're still probably catching more than most people.
Yeah, but I would love to see that, because I think you would see the guys who are at the top now. I don't know if they'd be at the top because they rely so heavily on what's on their boat.
As opposed to their instincts.
Exactly. I would love to see that. I think that would be great entertainment.
I think we start a new fishing league right now.
Don't post this. That's a great idea.
It is a great idea.
But what are your thoughts on that?
I'm still going to bet on Wheeler.
I think I would too. I would too.
It's. I agree with you. Like I understand what everybody thinks about it. I get it all. I've been through the change from generation to generation, but fishermen that can fish can still fish, regardless of what technology they're utilizing. I don't think all of a sudden you're going to see, a guy that's averages 50th or 60th be in the top 5, every week. I don't see it. This generation is just, it happens every time.
Yeah.
We like to think that, there's a system or there's a change that can kind of keep some of the old timers in it, but it just rarely happens.
Yeah.
The old timers that stay in it are, most of the time advancing with the times.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, they're utilizing the new techniques. They're learning the new stuff. It's very few of them, last by just doing the same thing over and over again. And I don't think changing from electronics or anything is going to keep that relevant. I think the youth is still going to dominate.
Wow.
Always has, and I think it always will.
I just think they're more inclined to search and find those answers. They don't have, and I'm just speaking from my own opinion, but they don't have that desire sometimes to, older generations don't have that desire to try to actively seek out new information, because this is the way that I've always done it. And the youth doesn't have that personal experience. Like you said, if you're an older guy and you're not adapting, you're going to fall behind. But it's like, where the youth, you're constantly learning as it is, because that's just the stage of your life right now.
Yeah. 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 I remember a tournament where, and I'm going to call him out a little bit, but Ott Defoe, Ott's been one of the top 3 or 4 guys for years and years and years now. And he's a young guy. And, we grew up close to each other, and we traveled together when we started. And, he was like a little kid, and I was like his dad. But anyway, I remember calling him in a tournament. I think it was UFAL or somewhere like that. And, we were in different groups. So he fished a different day, and he was in last place after the first period. Second period, he started to catch a few. And third period, he won the round. And I said, just great comeback, way to dial it in or something like that. Just sent him a text congratulating him. And he said, I said, tough first period or something, way to figure it out. And he said, it texted me back, and I'll never forget it. He said, hard to catch one if you didn't make a cast. He spent the entire first period graphing.
Wow.
Did not make a cast for 2.5 hours.
Wow. See, that was a question I had. Like, do you think there's a bad side to the forward-facing sonar? Because what if you're on a school and the guy, like, where's the point where you have to, like, move on? Like, if you're not catching the fish that you're seeing, do you think, like, you're going to get, like, focused and sucked into that?
There's no magic answer to that.
No, I think that I think the forward-facing sonar has hurt as many fishermen as it's helped, probably way more, because, you get distracted by it so easily. If you're just going down a bank, and all of a sudden you're fishing docks and you pan out there and there's 6 fish out there. I mean, I'm not good enough to know if they're a walleye or a bass or carp yet, so I'm going to cast to them, and I'm going to spend some time on them. And, heck, if it's 6 bass and I catch 4 of them, it was good time well spent. But the other 95 times they don't bite, well, I've lost 15 minutes of time.
Yep.
Chasing something.
And it can go by like that.
Yep.
I remember, sorry to interrupt you. My first time with live scope, I went and practiced Cumberland, straight up and down, straight down, and I would find fish. And I spent so long trying to keep it on them, trying to watch my bait, do this and do that, and it's just amazing how easy some people make it look. And people think you need the turrets or a stick, but I watch guys do it on their trolling motor, and they have it down to a science. And that's the whole misconception that I don't want people to get when they go spend $3,000, $4,000 on live scope. It's going to show you things that you will never see without it, but it is not instantly going to catch you more fish.
No, it's like I said, it is a detriment in my opinion.
Yeah.
In more cases than it helps somebody. It takes a lot of time. I mean, it's no different than trying to, work on your side scan. It took a lot of people a lot of time, a lot of hours. There's nothing that will ever replace time on the water.
Yeah.
And it's no different with forward-facing sonar. With you just got to spend time with it, and you'll start to figure out, times when it matters, times when you can use it, times when you can't. At first it was a deep technique, and that's still primarily what it was. But we went to Lake Fork, and guys were catching them off of stumps on it. I mean, with a crankbait.
And 8 foot of water?
Crazy, yeah, or less.
Yeah.
I mean, it was nuts. So there's. Guys are still learning the technology and what they can do with it. But I think it's just like anything else. It's going to, I've already heard stories of guys chasing those fish and having to turn off their sonar to try to catch them. So the fish will adapt. They've adapted to the Alabama rig. They adapted to a buzzbait. When a buzzbait first came out, you couldn't throw it without catching one. And same thing with Alabama rig. The fish will adapt. They don't want to get caught.
No.
You know, it's no different than a deer or anything else. You keep chasing it with the same technology, they're going to figure it out.
Yeah.
They're not going to keep getting caught. And so, you know, this too shall pass, in my opinion.
You know who I think has live scope dialed in even more than you guys?
Who's that?
Crappie guys.
Oh, they're phenomenal with it.
It is unbelievable. They'll chase one fish.
Yeah.
They won't cast until they find the fish they're looking for, and they know what species it is.
That's
they know.
crazy, man.
I mean,
you get on there, they have a damn 65-inch TV on the front.
Well, they've got two of them.
Yeah,
most of them on the front. They've got two turrets on. A lot of guys
Yeah.
have two on the front for, you know, one for the boat operator, one for his partner.
Yeah.
And they're looking at separate live scope
yeah.
How many
on
of
the
you
front of the boat. It's crazy.
How many of you sold Randy? Have you sold Randy any yet? Bussert?
I sold a guy the other day, a Lund Renegade,
Yeah.
and he's getting that set up front where two guys are going to be up there and they're both going to be on live scope, which blew my mind.
Yeah.
I'm like, when is this too much?
Yeah. I guess that
Because you're talking at least $6,000 worth of electronics.
Sure.
Now, I do think it'll affect the crappie fishing,
Oh
you
yeah.
know, adversely more than it will bass fishing.
Yeah.
You know, they just set up different. You know, they set up for it. I
Yeah.
mean, they're
It's perfect.
yeah. I mean, it is the crappie slayer for
Have
sure.
you played around with crappie
Oh, yeah.
on it?
Yeah.
Have you?
Yeah,
I
I've got-
still haven't. I really want to.
I've got about 180 cane piles on Watts Bar.
Well, now you can literally pan over. Oh, they're not there. You know,
Right.
move to the next one.
Yep.
Whereas
That's interesting.
before that, you're probably going to graph it and see some, but not as well as you would on live scope. So
Well, and that goes back to what we were talking about earlier. You know, the younger generation is willing to, you know, pan every dock
yeah,
until they see some under one and then fish that dock.
Yeah.
You know, for me, you know, there's got to be one under there. I don't care if it's not showing one or not.
Yeah.
Just get my jig under it.
Yeah.
You know, but the younger generation is willing to just keep moving and moving and moving, and that's what makes them good, whether it's with, you know, live target or a buzzbait.
Yeah.
it made a difference for us when we went up to St. Clair.
Well, you
I mean, I
guys,
could
do you guys
pan it.
use it up there?
Yeah,
I
I
didn't
could
know if
paint
you
it
had
up
it
under
there.
the docks. It was early. They're already in the docks, like mid-April. And you can scan a dock with forward facing. If there's not fish there, we'd fish it just for the heck of it. There's got to be one under there. There wasn't, so we'd move on. And then after that, we caught on. If we saw them, they were there. And, I mean,
Yeah.
it just takes out so much of the guesswork.
Smallmouth are extremely
Yeah.
susceptible to it.
Yeah.
So you guys slayed up there too, didn't you? You
Yeah,
got
that was
quite a-
really fun. I'm going to make that trip every year. St.
That's a
Clair in
special-
April.
Yeah. How many PBs did you break?
Oh, no more St. Clair info. I've got a tournament on there.
Well, can we
You can
say-
talk about what you can say.
What can't we say?
You can't say how you caught them
Okay.
or anything like that. You
Even
can
if it
say
was
what
in-
you caught.
Well, I'll just
Even
say
doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter when it was.
Doesn't matter when it was.
I'll just say every time I caught a fish, I broke my PB.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's
I think the heaviest one was 4.5 pounds, which
Awesome.
is giant for me.
That's awesome.
Like,
I love it.
I told him he
I
would
love
his first
St. Clair.
fish.
yeah, I normally just catch them around here, just wading creeks in the summertime. I don't have a boat, so I just kind of meander around and catch them where I can.
Yeah.
So that first fish, I think it was like 2.5 pounds, is the biggest one I've ever caught.
Wow.
It was awesome.
So
That's the greatest guide trip ever. So when your guy comes up to you and you're on St. Clair and he's like, "Man, I hope I can break my personal best at 2.5."
Yeah. And you're like,
I'm like, "Okay."
I said, dude,
this is going to be. I'm going to get tipped well.
yeah, don't say anything.
that's kind of something I wanted to ask you, Brandon. You get the opportunity to fish all these amazing lakes. Someone who wants to, they have a boat, they have a truck, they want to take a trip, and they want to go out and catch a bunch of fish.
Yeah.
What is the best lake and what time of year would you recommend?
The ultimate guys trip.
Yeah.
You know, I would say that depending on which direction you want it to go. So if I was going somewhere, I would go probably either Lake Fork, because you just have a chance to catch a giant. You know, it would depend on what your goals are. You know, if I wanted to catch a big fish, I would go to Lake Fork. You know, it's just a special place. It's got so much history. You can go there and, I mean, catch a, you know, that's I think your best chance to catch, you know, a 10-pounder.
Early.
Yeah, I would go in the spring. You know, I would go in February, March. make it an early trip. It's still cold up here. That's kind of part of the thing too, right? Is you live up north and you get a chance to go to Texas.
Yeah, you want to be,
and you get warm and all that stuff. So just everything adds to that trip. It just makes it a trip.
That's when they're spawning down there.
That's when they're spawning.
Okay.
So
even pre-spawn, I'd probably, if I was trying to catch a true double digit, I'd go, in March, and end of February, early March.
Yeah.
Kind of before the spawn.
the weather sucks up here, and it's gonna be nice and toasty down there. You'll be loving it.
It won't be toasty.
No,
I don't think it'll be toasty.
It's hit or miss.
Yeah.
It can be one way or the other. And then if I lived in Texas, I would go to Lake Champlain.
Yeah.
Champlain's just a special place. It's a lake like no other in that, for a tournament fisherman, you can win it with smallmouth or largemouth.
It's crazy.
And that's whether it's a 5-fish tournament, whether it's a every fish counts tournament, it doesn't matter. I mean, the place has, 5-pound largemouth and 5-pound smallmouth littered in it. And so it's just a special place. It's probably the only place in the country you could do that.
What's the best time to go there?
I would go I like Champlain a little later in the year.
Really?
Just when the fish are set up a little different, the bass are, the largemouth are in the grass.
They're more consistent.
Mm-hmm. And so you can go to, Ticonderoga, the south end of the lake is, largemouth fishing.
Mm-hmm.
All the bays up north have largemouth in them too. And then, smallmouth is primarily kind of the north end. And it's just phenomenal. I mean, they live there. They don't get messed with that much. Most of the people out there are, catching perch.
So May, June?
I would say June, the end of June.
Yeah. End of June. Really?
It's and maybe even in July. I like it when the smallmouth are set up on structure. They're not as finicky. It's not really dealing with them spawn or post spawn, which can be so hit or miss.
Yeah.
Let them get through the post spawn. Let them get set up on structure. Probably late June, maybe even through July. I like July up there. And now the advantage there is if you live in the south and it's 105 degrees.
Yeah, no doubt.
You go up there in July and it's 70. So, you're kind of talking about the fishing, but also the experience.
Sure.
Yeah.
And that adds to everything. So if I lived in the south, I'd go north. If I lived in the north, I'd go south.
And if you're in Ohio, you just stay right here in Buckeye Lake.
Well, I just wanted to get this.
Y'all need to try that Lake Rupert. I'm telling you, it looks good.
There you go,
What
man.
looks good about it?
It doesn't look good.
Okay,
I just drive by it.
What I had a, you've been, like Hunter mentioned, you've been able to fish a lot of places and have a lot of success. What's been like one highlight moment for you, whether it's in a tournament or whether it's in personal? What's kind of that one cast that really?
I would say there's a couple things that I look back on and that I'll always be thankful for, and that's, I won on Lake Champlain.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's probably the reason it's one of my favorite lakes. But I won against some of the best in the world, and won at a place that I love, and it was a special week, and it was a lot of fun. So that's my kind of defining win,
sure.
If you will. Something I hang my hat on though a lot is I was fortunate enough to come up through the system where I fished the Forcewood Cup. For FLW, which is their big event, fished the Bassmaster Classic, and I fished the Red Crest, which is Major League Fishing's big event. So of the 3 biggest stores you could have ever fished, in a lifetime, I got to fish the Classic in all of them and made the final day in all of them.
Sure.
So to be able to do that, was kind of a, it's, like I said, all I want to do is compete.
Yeah.
And I've never been ranked number 1 or, in the top 10. I'm kind of a grinder, but to be able to stay in it all these years, I've never been, relegated out of a circuit, fortunately. Didn't requalify. I've always requalified. I get a lot of checks and, have a win or two and, made the Classic in every one of them. And that's, to me, that's just, I just want to be competitive.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, cool. No. 200-inch buck or 11-pound bass.
No question.
He's probably already gotten 11. Come on now.
200 inches.
So what would your comparison be there? What would be a 200-inch deer, but bass weight for you?
It's got to be over 13.
13.
I've got a 13.
What's your biggest?
13-1.
Where, Fork?
No, it was at Lake Choke Canyon in Texas.
Really?
It was just meant to be. We were actually at the Red River in Louisiana for an FLW tournament. It got canceled. Huge cold front. River was flooded, and so they canceled it. Well, I had a bunch of guys coming in I was taking them to Sugar Lake in Mexico. And so after the Red River, well, because the tournament got canceled, I was I wasn't going to drive back home from Louisiana and then have to go to Texas. So what am I going to do? Yeah. So we went, so I decided to stop at Choke Canyon because they were flying into San Antonio. I was picking them up. And so went to San Antonio, and I fished Choke Canyon for 2 days. It was absolutely terrible fishing. It was a huge cold front. I think we caught like 4 bass. But one of them was a 13-1.
Are you serious?
Yep. Wow. That made up for it.
Yeah. And so it was a, just caught on a vibrating jig.
Well, last question for you, sir. What is some advice you have to offer to someone trying to get into your footsteps?
Oh, yeah.
It's the path is so much different now than it used to be. And the path's different for everybody. I hear everybody. One thing I've always struggled with in my career is giving anyone advice, meaning that this is the way to do something.
Yeah.
Because as soon as I tell you that the fish are going to be 20 foot deep on Lake St. Clair, someone's going to win it in 1.5 feet of water.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's
that's life. And as soon as you say you have to go to college, which is what I was told, there's a lot more people making a lot more money that don't go to college now. Yeah. So, it's advice is, you got to take it with a grain of salt. But, I like my path, meaning, I fish better because I don't worry about the light bill. Now, a lot of that's, thank you, babe. Appreciate it. State Farm Agency.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Nothing wrong with being
Don't quit yet.
Nothing wrong with being the captain. I will tell you that from experience myself.
So, but because of that, I enjoy, I enjoy what I do. And I get to make choices doing what I do because I don't have to pay the gas bill on the way home. But now, but then there's, the guys that did it from the time they were young. I'm going to tell you, it's going to sound weird, but it's easier to do it when you're young.
Yeah.
And the reason is, you're not worried about, football practice for your kids or this or that, or, missing birthdays, and those kind of things. So, I think the easiest path is if you're going to do it, go.
Do it now.
Yeah.
Go. I mean, do it quick. Do it while you're young. So now we have so many options, right?
Yeah.
I mean, college, high school fishing.
I'm sure there's something before high school.
There's middle
too.
school.
Oh,
I've spoke at several middle schools.
Oh, really?
Wow.
And so it's crazy the options out there now. So, but I still think people get sidetracked in the fact that they go to middle school, they go to high school, they go to college fishing. They have so much confidence that they don't think they need to be in the back of the boat. And I think that's a mistake.
Yeah.
The best fishermen that we have, the Justin Lucases, a lot of those guys, some of the best fishermen we have, fished in the back of the boat for a while. Mm-hmm. They were a co-angler. And we're kind of missing that right now. And I think that's why you're seeing a lot of young guys kind of get to a certain point and then stall. You're seeing a lot of college guys that you just, they're going to do it. Like they're the best. And then all of a sudden you don't hear from them for a while.
Yeah.
And it's because a lot of them, aren't willing to step back to get forward. So, I would say do all of those things.
Yeah.
Middle school, high school, college, whatever you can do. But at some point, my advice would be go to, the circuits that have some co-anglers in them. And take some time, even if you're fishing still out of the front of the boat in some other circuits.
Yeah.
But find the highest level, whether it's a marshal for bass, whether it's a boat official for Major League Fishing, whether it's a co-angler, for a coast this year. Get in the back of the boat. You can always learn something. So I think that path is getting harder. Less and less guys are taking that path, and I think it's beneficial.
Yeah. I've heard a lot of people say that too. So
yeah, the college fishing circuit is pretty cool too. I like watching that on TV. You catch that on ESPN and stuff too. So,
well, you guys got anything else for Brandon?
Go Bucks!
I think we're going to get to see that. I think there's a really good chance we see a little Tennessee Ohio State at some point. I don't feel like Ohio State's fared very well in those matchups.
We'll see. This is a fishing podcast.
So you just witnessed the Georgia and Tennessee game. You were there.
Yes.
Tell us about it. How was it?
Well, I actually drove home from deer hunting.
It was over for him really fast.
Thankfully, Chris, if you're listening, he has a plane, and so we got in and got out of Georgia quick, and didn't have to wait for commercial airline. But no, it was a rough game. But it's funny. As a Tennessee fan, we've struggled for quite a while, and to be a one-loss team is phenomenal from where they were, and in just 2 years for Josh Heupel. So to get to where they have in just 2 years of the new coaching staff is pretty phenomenal. And it's a lot of fun. So I'm not going to dog them too bad for losing the number one team at their home field.
God bless NIL and transfer portals. And with that, this fishing podcast is complete.
There you go.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, man.
No problem, guys.
No, we really appreciate you having here and having you at the store too. I know that was really cool when we had the fishing. Was it just a day or was it a weekend? I can't remember.
The expo.
Yeah, the
Just
expo.
one day.
Yeah.
Just the one day having you there and running those seminars and stuff. That was pretty cool too. So.
Oh, perfect. Anything I can never do, man. I enjoy coming up here, and it's a good group of people.
We'll have you up here as long as you share those pins.
There you go.
Awesome, man. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, guys.
All right, everyone, that is all we have for you today. We hope you enjoyed that conversation with Brandon. It was really cool to pull back the curtain and see some of the stuff an angler on the Pro Tour has to go through. As always, we appreciate you listening. Have a great holiday season, and until next time, enjoy the pursuit.